Welcome to Conversations on the Coast, San Francisco's premier author interview program. Today we're going to talk about something very, very different. Our guest is Lisa Yee. She is the author of a book called So Totally Emily Ebers, and it's published by Arthur A. Levine Books, which is an imprint of Scholastic Incorporated. And having said all that, I now say welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming by. And you are the first author who's ever appeared on this program who's actually completed the trilogy that he or she set out to write.
Well, it's nice to be a first.
Yeah, congratulations. The first book in this trilogy was called Millicent Min, Girl Genius, modest title. And the second one is called Stanford Wong Flunks Big Time. And they are a trilogy. And they are a trilogy in a very interesting way. They each tell essentially the same story, covering the same period of time, a summer off from school, summer vacation, from different points of view.
That's right.
Were you sick at the time you dreamt this up?
Well, what happened, I had no idea I was writing a trilogy. When I first wrote Millicent Min, Girl Genius, it was a standalone. I mean, to me, it was done. It was over. And my daughter, who was 11 at the time when that book came out, she just thought boys were stupid and disgusting and smelly and just, evil beings, and she thought they shouldn't be on this planet. And I thought, well, honey, you're wrong. They're very complicated creatures. And I thought, well, I need to write about this. But I didn't want to write a sequel. And I loved Stanford Wong in Millicent's book. He's her archenemy. So I thought, what if I wrote about the same summer, only everything is from Stanford's point of view? And I would like to add that my daughter is now 15, a freshman in high school, and she's changed her opinion about boys.
She has a different opinion.
Totally different. I think I liked it better when she was 11.
Fewer worries.
Yes.
All right, so now you've got number 2, and did that just naturally carry you through to the third?
After 2, I thought I was done. I really thought, okay, this is it. And then fans started writing to me. And they were saying, like, well, we love Emily. We want to know more about Emily. And I thought, well, I can do this. I didn't know what her story was going to be at the time, because actually in the 3 books, there's only maybe 10% of the scenes that overlap. And as I started digging deeper into her story, she started revealing herself to me, and she ended up being a lot more complex than I thought she was going to be. Yeah,
we're going to look at one of those overlapping scenes soon. The other thing that is said about these books is that they are all, although they're each part of a trilogy, they are also stand-alone.
That's right. It doesn't matter. You don't have to read all 3. You can just read 1, you could read 2, you could read 3 in any order. It doesn't matter because they each stand alone. It's each about what happens to a child in the course of a summer. And they happen to have overlapping scenes and appear in each other's books.
How much of this getting into the trilogy was your idea, and how much was Arthur A. Levine's?
The trilogy was my idea.
Was it? Okay.
It was my idea. And at the time that I thought I would write Stanford, I remember sending in a book proposal. And so I cited William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury. And I said, it's going to be sort of like that, only middle grade and with angst about pimples. So he liked that. And we went from there.
I like the angst about pimples.
Yes.
Hey, Lord knows. Yeah. We're going to focus more today on the third book than the first 2. So let us at least point out that the first 2 were quite highly praised. Millicent Min, Girl Genius was called by Kirkus Reviews funny, charming, heartwarming. This deserves an A. Yay!
Yay from Kirkus. Yeah.
Yes, an A from Kirkus. And Booklist, in writing about Stanford Wong Flunks Big Time, they, in part, said, a portrait of a wholly likable underachiever in the classroom who shines on the court. The court is the basketball court.
The basketball court, yes.
The basketball court. And then he and our friend Emily really get together.
Well, they sparkle their eyes at each other, so you know something's going to happen.
Sparkling eyes.
Oh, sparkling eyes, yes. I had to do a lot of middle school research on that. And I remember asking my daughter, how can you tell if a boy likes you? And she and her friend went through this whole thing about how they throw things at you, and that's how you can tell.
Well, there's also a hint here, Emily, on romance. I think the only real way to tell if a boy likes you, like you is to be direct. Even though it might be scary, the thing to do is just march right up and ask one of your friends to ask someone close to ask one of his friends what he thinks about you. That's certainly safe, isn't it?
I think so.
And, you can't get, heartbroken if you go that route.
Oh, no, not at all. Include your friends.
All right. Yes, we do have a new book to talk about. It's called So Totally Emily Ebers. And we will talk about that book in a minute. Promise.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Follow us on Twitter at Jim Foster COC or send an email to jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
Lisa Yee is our guest, one of the most unusual authors we've ever had, an author who has successfully completed a trilogy. Let me tell you the titles. Number 1, Millicent Min, Girl Genius. Number 2, Stanford Wong Flunks Big Time. Number 3, So Totally Emily Ebers. You should be. I'm very proud of that. I think it's fantastic. I really do.
My family.
The other point of this trilogy is the fact that it essentially tells the same story from 3 different points of view.
Absolutely.
And so I think there are people out there saying, so prove it. I want you to prove it.
Okay.
Now, and I want you to prove it by describing the zit trip to the drugstore.
You want the zit scene?
Yeah, the zit scene from the drugstore from 2 points of view.
Okay, I can do
First,
that.
we will hear from Stanford.
Okay, so this is Stanford. I have 2 zits now, and they're really beginning to bother me. One's as big as a house. Ooh, wouldn't that be gross to live in a zit? I mean, you'd have to wear a scuba suit or an astronaut outfit to do that. Disgusting. The drugstore isn't too crowded. Good. Look at all the pimple medicines. Man, there are a lot of them. There must be millions of zits out there to have so many medicines. This line is so slow. The lady in front of me has bought a ton of dog food. She must have like a really big dog. Hey, there's a girl over there who's kind of cute. She's taller than me, but she has a really nice smile. Plus, she has sparkly eyes. I like sparkly eyes. I try to make my eyes sparkle back at her, and oh my God, she's standing next to... It can't be. She's standing next to Millicent Min. No! She's with Millicent Min. This can't be happening. I try to cover my zits. The girl is looking at me and smiling and sparkling. Oh, God, wow, she's cute. Oh, God. Now Millicent's turning around and staring at me. She looks horrified. I toss the zit medicine and run out the side door. Beep. Oh, no. I went out the fire exit. I can't believe I did that. I bet that girl thinks I'm the biggest idiot. When Millicent gets through telling her about me, I might as well be on a big, stupid idiot poster.
Oh, that's a horrible exit for Stanford.
Yeah, he doesn't do too well in the drugstore.
On the other hand, our friend Emily.
Okay, so this is Emily, and what she's doing is she's writing a letter to her dad. Her parents are newly divorced, and her dad's on the road with his rock band. So this is a letter to him. July 11th. Dear Dad, this afternoon I met Millie at the drugstore. I needed more Bonnie Bell lip smackers. I've lost 3 since we've moved here. Oh, let's buy makeup and do makeovers on each other, I exclaimed as we neared the cosmetics aisle. Oh, okay, Millicent replied as she walked briskly past the lipsticks. But first let's poke ourselves in the eye with a fork, since that would be so much more fun. Later, when Millie and I were in line, it felt like someone was staring at me. I slowly turned around, and it was as if my body had been struck by a million billion jolts of electricity. Standing in the very next line was this Asian boy with black hair and big, beautiful brown eyes and long eyelashes. I smiled at him, and he smiled back. His grin was crooked and totally to die for. Do you believe in love at first sight? Dad, do you still believe in love? The boy was staring at me, staring at him, and just when it looked like he was going to say something, Millie whirled around. His eyes went from me to her, and instantly his smile disappeared. Millie, you're all red. Do you know him? I whispered. Is he from around here? Oh, he's so dreamy. Looks like a nightmare to me, she muttered. As we turned back to check him out, he tossed something and ran. The alarm shrieked as he bolted out the emergency exit. I scooped up what he had dropped, a tube of Zappo-Zit, and I slipped it in with the things I was buying. As we walked to Maddie's house, I had so many questions. So, Millicent, do you know him? It looked like you knew each other. I wonder what he thought of me. I mean, do you think he's thinking about me right now? I sensed a real connection, like they say when you find your soulmate. I wonder if he's my soulmate. I mean, I felt like we were really speaking through our eyes. Do you think people can speak through their eyes? Don't you think he has the dreamiest eyes? And to smile, I could talk about his... Enough! Millicent yelled. If I hear one more word about that stupid boy, I'm going to regurgitate my entire lunch and a good deal of my breakfast, too. Oh, sorry. I wonder what Millie has against him. I'll ask again later. In the meantime, I'm going to sleep with his Zappo-Zit under my pillow. Love, Emily.
That's a real threat to a friendship there. You know, that's awful. That's so well done.
Well, what Emily doesn't know is that Stanford and Millicent are arch enemies.
Yeah, she doesn't know at that point. No, she's
That's right.
nothing about that at all. Now, Lisa Yee, as I read the book, I thought she was what we used to call many years ago a wiseacre. And I didn't like the way she talked to and about her mother and a lot of other things. And then I realized that at a deeper level, something very serious is going on in this book, and that is, what is divorce all about for the child of the divorced situation? And we have here, Emily is hurting.
Right.
Emily is, searching for love, searching for friendship.
And she's taking it all out on her mom.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that this book raises is this question: how good a teaching device is humor? Answers when we come back.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Follow us on Twitter at Jim Foster COC or send an email to jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
This is Jim Foster. It is Conversations on the Coast. Our guest, Lisa Yee, is here to talk about the 3 books in her trilogy: Millicent Min, Girl Genius. That's number 1. Number 2, Stanford Wong, Flunks Big Time. And the new one, So Totally Emily Ebers. And before we go to the humor as a teaching device, let's talk about your life before you became an author, and maybe that'll explain why you use humor.
Well, I had so many different jobs. I mean, so many. All were working with words, though. I mean, I've written television commercials and radio commercials. I've written jingles and slogans. If you've ever heard Past the Old El Paso, that was me. Menus for Red Lobster. I've written...
Wait a minute. I want you to stop right there.
Yes.
You are a person who has written a Red Lobster menu.
I wrote, the golden fried shrimp. I would write those kinds of tempting words. Yes.
The Maine lobster with the cream sauce.
The Maine lobster. And you know what I do? I tell them, you have to send me the food so I can try it, so I can really write about this.
That's a smart
And
move.
they would, yes. But, I've written for television. I've written television specials, and I've been a journalist. All different things.
Okay. And one of the things when you talk to students about how you've developed in your life as an artist, if you will, is that you make a distinction between being a writer and being an author.
Absolutely. When I was a little kid, I always wanted to be an author. I wanted to write books, but I was too afraid to say that out loud because I thought people would make fun of me or it wouldn't come true. And even growing up, I thought, well, an author, nobody's actually an author. It's like telling people you want to be a rock star. Mm-hmm. So I was able to make my living with words and being different types of writers, but I didn't actually try being an author until I was in my late 30s, early 40s.
You were doing pretty well, just doing the words.
I was doing very well.
You were the creative director for an advertising agency among whose clients was a small company called Walt Disney?
Yeah. I mean, my husband and I, we had our own company. I was the creative director. Our clients were Disney World and Universal Studios and Red Lobster. And it was quite a corporate life. But I was writing. I was making a lot of money, but I wasn't doing what I loved.
Okay. Now, teaching, using humor as a way of talking about, let's say, rather than teaching, talking about serious things like divorce, like friendship, like getting along with your mother, and all those kinds of things. When did that come to you as a way of doing it, so to speak?
Well, it's really funny that you said that because I never had considered myself a humorous author. And when I wrote Millicent Min, Girl Genius, I remember I was sitting at home and I got this phone call from the SCBWI, Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And it was a conference call, and they started telling me about this humor award that was equivalent to the Newbery, but it was for humor, called the Sid Fleischman Humor Award. And,
Sid Fleischman? Well, I remember Sid from the Catskills.
And I'm like, why are they telling me this? Are they just calling everyone? And they said, well, you won. And it was the first time they gave it out. And I was shocked because I didn't know I wrote a funny book. And I remember I called my best friend Henry and I said, I won the Sid Fleischman Humor Award. He goes, why you? I mean, that book is so sad. And it's like, well, and then I started explaining why it was funny. And I realized if you have to explain, it's not funny. But, my books they're funny, but they're tragic at the same time. And I think that's what life is like. I write things that are character driven. So I think there are like two kinds of humor. There's slapstick humor, which could happen to anyone. You don't have to know about the character. And there's character-driven humor, which is what I do. And you have to get to know the character and care for the character in order to laugh along with them, but never at them.
Emily, for example, is an expert on a lot of things, on cross-country travel. How did the pioneers do it, she wonders? Did they have to ride with their mothers?
That's right.
So there you're, throwing a laugh line, so to speak, at that relationship between mother and daughter, which, trust me, goes far south in this book.
Oh, yes, very much. Yeah, Emily and her mother are not getting along. Because of the divorce, her mother is going through her own depression. Yeah. And she's really not there. She's not present for her daughter who really needs her.
She has 2 p.m. crying sessions in the bathroom.
Every day.
And this is not funny stuff. And yet, the attention is drawn to these situations and to these important matters by humor. Emily Ebers on divorce. Alice has a bunch of books about divorce and how it affects kids. It affects kids in a bad way, okay? Does she really need a book to figure that out?
That's right.
And that's a great truth. And, sticking it to her mother at the same time. It's like she, can't let up. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it goes. But at the end, there is reconciliation of sorts, if not resolution.
Absolutely.
Joining us today is an author who's funny, but didn't intend to be. Her name is Lisa Yee, and the book that we were talking about today, So Totally Emily Ebers. This has been Conversations on the Coast, and I'm Jim Foster.
Follow us on Twitter at Jim Foster COC, or send an email to jimfostercoc@gmail.com.